Yo, yo, yo. It's D.Arthur in the building. Talking to you guys today about semen retention, woman attraction, why your standards will have raised while you're on retention. And you'll start attracting you'll start realizing that everything that you used to do before you were on retention doesn't make that much sense anymore. When you go on semen retention, when you go on a long day of semen retention, you start realizing that you're more in tune with yourself. You're basically living a life that you really want to live. And that means your standards and what you believe to be true might have changed. It means that you might think that if you think things were hard, or earning money was hard, or getting women was hard before you relapsed, after you relapse, you're gonna start realizing that it's easier if you do things in a certain way when you're on semen retention. If you realize that when you go on retention, you realize that most of the things that you had problems with in the past all start to evaporate, and you realize that the core essence of who you are, your semen, your nut, is very valuable in, let's say, the marketplace. It's valuable anywhere you go. It's valuable when you're at work. It's valuable when you're making business transactions. It's valuable when it comes to to your mentality and your mindset about things. It's valuable anywhere you go. It's valuable when you're meeting a woman. It's valuable when you're negotiating something. It's valuable when you're working out. It's valuable when you're driving too. It's just valuable everywhere you go, because the reason why I say this is because once you've retained, you realize that your seminal fluid has nutrients in it. It really is the essence and thing that makes you a man. And man was put on here to be more of a protector and, let's say, a provider type. So when you retain the essence that makes you a man, you realize you become more of your hardwired true self. Relapsing isn't natural. If it's you who relapses by yourself, you realize it really isn't that natural, because once you relapse, you definitely have more of a fear type of consciousness. You start panicking a little bit. You start thinking with the victim mentality. You start realizing that you're not really who you truly are when you relapse. You just become a shell of your real self, and this shows in how you carry yourself and your marketplace. Energy speaks for itself. Energy speaks for itself the moment you enter the building. So anybody can, the moment you enter the building, anybody can really make some impressions about you just like that. People make decisions about people, if they're, let's say, high status, they're low status, really in the first 5 to 10 seconds of looking at them and seeing them. However you present yourself, people will try to correlate with you, and they'll think that if it seems like you're afraid, if it seems like you're scared, then you're not going to have that much, let's say, choosing signals. Now, when you retain, everything that you were taught goes out the window. You start writing a new script. You start realizing that there really is no rules to any of this. There's no rules to anything. All it is are pre-suggestions that were made by, let's say, people in higher positions than us. And a lot of people just take it as their reality, and they don't have no fight. They don't think for themselves. They're they're given this box, and the only thing they can think is in the borders of this box. But when you retain, you start realizing, you start thinking outside of the box. And this is how, let's say, the greatest people live their lives. People like Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi, the Most High, when he was in his physical form. They started realizing that, hey, everything that has been taught, everything that we know is true, may not actually be the truth. And then they started talking about change and helping people realize things, and helping people act in a certain way, and doing all these things. And obviously, if you're doing things different than what the majority of people are doing, you're going to have some backlash no matter what. So, I mean, the best thing for you is to retain, to meditate, and to listen to your intuition. And how do you keep let's say a woman, let's say, interested in you when you're on retention? How do you keep her interest high? How do you keep the conversation going? How do you make sure that she doesn't get bored with you when you're with her? Because this is a very logical, this is a very common thing for men, to keep a woman's interest high and basically to keep her. The thing is, when you're on retention, you have this thing called a core presence about you, and you're gonna have a lot of emotional, let's say, you're gonna be a very emotional person, and women like emotions. The man who can give her the most emotional stimulation usually is the man who keeps her. Because if you're boring and you keep things the same and you're never spontaneous and you don't spike any emotions in her, her attention span is going to be that of a toddler, and she's going to move on to somebody else quickly. So in order for you to, let's say, keep her interested, you have to spike her emotions. At the beginning, you have to intrigue her interest. And the more confident you are about yourself, the easier it is to keep, let's say, a woman interested in you. The more confident you are about yourself. So in order to, let's say, gauge her interest and make her keep her, become more interesting. Actually have things going on in your life. Put in the work. Do something different. Do something outside the box. Learn some information and apply it. Stop watching 8 hours of Netflix a day or doing things that are just expected of you. You have to anybody can make a living, but now you have to start doing even more to try to get better results if that's what you want. So make sure you're stimulating her emotions. Keep when maybe you're texting her, say things like, this thing made me think about you. And then obviously she's going to be like, what are you talking about? And then that's when you don't respond for, let's say, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, or maybe even a day. That's going to keep her very, very interested, unless she has no interest in the beginning. You have to intrigue her at the beginning, and then get her, let's say, interested about you. And then you kind of have to have a little bit of a push and pull kind of thing about you, where sometimes you give her different emotional stimulations so she can be interested in you. This is pretty much how attraction works. And you're going to be a lot more emotional. You're going to be a lot more, let's say, happier with yourself, and more confident with yourself when you retain. If you relapse, it's harder to do any of these things, because you're too much in a fear consciousness. You care too much about what she thinks. The more confident you are, the easier it is to play with her and treat her, let's say, as just another person, and not to be too dependent on what she thinks about you. Because if you really want to nail, let's say, the baddest girl, then you're gonna have to take some chances with her, and you're gonna have to be a little bit risky with her, because normal conversation, normal things, logical conversations, that really isn't going to keep a high value woman that interested in you that long. It might work at the beginning, but for the longevity of it, it's really not going to work that much. So make sure you're spiking her emotions, because I mean, apparently the thing. And also, like, I work with, let's say, a woman, and I realized that even the things that she does is that she makes it more like she makes it more she makes me show emotion just so she can get like an emotional kick out of me, because it really is easy for guys just to show no emotion and just be logical and kind of boring. But the thing is, she might test you and give you some emotional test to see how you react in certain situations. And I guess this is what some women do, just to get some sort of emotion out of you. So play it back. So what I'm thinking is, what I say about that is, give her some emotion and let's see how she feels after you do something, let's say, spontaneous. So like, comment, and subscribe below. And like I said, all of this becomes a lot easier when you're on retention, because you're becoming the true self, your true essence, and you don't care as much about what she thinks. This becomes a lot easier when you're on retention. So like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.